some things are better left unsaid right now, but the energy doesn't really stay hidden for long. Today we're looking at what's actually going on beneath the surface in your connections, love, friendship, and whoever's been on your mind. Let's pick your pal and let's see what the truth is that's trying to find you. So this reading is going to be a what is hidden from you. Hi group 1, welcome to your selection. So you chose the blue heart emoji, and I immediately heard Aquarius. Okay, so this could be an Aquarius in your life. If a particular person comes to mind, but I also feel like this could also be something that involves a cohort of people, where you've had a lot of sorrow being an exceptional talent, an exceptional intellect, a creative ability in a cohort that has maybe made you stand out. You guys have been an innovator in some type of way. You've been eccentric in some type of way. And some of you guys, you stand out because of your skin color, okay? Or you stand out because maybe you're like maybe you're the only person representing your cultural group, okay, or your racial group in a cohort. Some of you are you just represent as a light worker, and this makes you stand out as well, okay? What's hidden from you, group 1? What's hidden from you? What's hidden from you, group 1? Yeah, the discord, okay? The whip energy, okay? So I honestly was just posting about this on X. It's just like, this feels like a collective psychosis. Like, it feels, this fight, you feel really unbothered by it, really removed by it, really, I think that with this whip and this discord, a lot of things were really left unsaid in this situation. And for this pal, you actually represent the blue moon energy, okay? So this feels like someone did not, like, I don't know, it feels like someone didn't tell you that they were in a discord with you. Maybe they just stopped talking to you abruptly. Maybe they maybe it was like, maybe not abruptly, but maybe something happened slowly and over time. Maybe it was I think you definitely win this discord. I think that this is like actually a fight that you win, actually. But you know, these people don't actually tell you that they're in a fight with you. It's just a lot behind the scenes. A lot of it is really, really indirect. Like, if these are girls at the pole dance studio, or at the dance studio, or at the yoga studio, they will never ever like confront you. I'm just gonna be honest, like, to your face. A bitch would never, right? A lot of times the reason why people don't confront you about things is because it's not actually something that you guys have done. This is something that could have happened while you were in your home, or this could have happened in a place that was supposed to feel like home, a community or a place where you come from. And I'm telling you to your face, a bitch would never, okay? So that's the funny thing about this, is that like, it's not real, right? And I think that it's because a lot of you really have not done anything to them. Your mere existence did something to them. Like, your you existing, or you maybe even like taking up shared hobbies and activities. Like I say, it could feel like a home, or it can feel like people who kind of relate, doing the same activities. But you guys have been, you've been in a big fight with these people. There have been verbal lashings, there's been ego clashings, there has really been, some of you guys have been on a journey with these people to discovering the fact that this has been a fight. A lot of it, much of it is indirect. They will never to your face, but it's a lot more indirect. May even, it might cause issues in your home, or it might cause issues at work, in your business transactions. Okay, so to your face they'll never, right? They'll just try to do something a lot more subdued, right? We have the crossroads. Okay, I think that this discord, actually, it made this, like, it made choosing a pathway difficult for you and others, because I do think that if things got violent and aggressive, you just, certain pathways, I don't know exactly what this could be about yet, but like certain pathways you are not interested in anymore because of a discord. Okay, if a man came into your life and created a drama whatsoever, then I think that this person's name can start with the letter A or P. If this person came into your life whatsoever and created a drama, just know that a lot of this discord is unrecoverable. These are sunk costs. So whatever you invested cannot be recovered. Okay? This person has been at a crossroads for a long time, and some of them have had a problem with something that you've been doing. It was not something that you I don't know. This feels like it was not a problem. It was not like this discord was invisible, or never to your face. And some of it was a man that, this could have been a man that you were in a fight with, or this could have been other women that were fighting you because of this man. And I truly think that when you discovered that this man, they were in a personal discord with you, about some of your decisions that you've made, I just think that you kind of understood why they were mad about something. You thought that their discord was with you was perfect. But I think that they didn't really tell you everything, or they didn't really, it was very shadowed. Or they didn't express emotions because there was a pathway that you, like, I don't know, there was a pathway that you took to acquire more talent, skills, and gifts. It was a very independent decision that you made that made this man mad, and they were perfect in their discord with you. And I think that you honestly came to appreciate the fight, LOL, or you kind of just, like, you were really accepting of it, or you didn't really, you understood where they were coming from. This person has been at a crossroads because some of you guys, there was this person, somebody is mad about your ex. This could be your ex, or this could be, yeah, I'm getting that somebody is mad about your ex. Okay, and this could even be a new suitor that has been wanting to pursue you, but they have been, at this crossroads, fighting you about your ex, or angry about some kind of conflict that you have with your ex or some other man. Okay, we have the cloud energy. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. What is hidden from you? Okay, and life and in relationships, okay? Yeah, it's just fear, okay? You're not in no type of you're not in any competition. It's not a competition. I want you to, like, if you think that you're at a crossroads, they need to choose between you and somebody else. This person literally just, it was a pathway that you took that may have offered you more talent, skills, and gifts. It was a very sovereign decision that you made to focus on your talent, skills, and gifts in a situation. And I think that when they met you with an opportunity, you were under a lot of fear and anxiety. Some of you really, really struggled with paranoia when you first met this man, or when they first like offered you something. But when, I don't know, something where it feels like you were the runner in a situation, like the runner chaser dynamic or the push pull dynamic. It feels like you were the runner in a situation, and when you were like, to this person, you were like a diamond in the rough, but you were under so much fear and anxiety about this rough state that you were in. You were nowhere near in your soft life. You were nowhere near, able to communicate to this person about what you were going through. And this path that you took to pursue more talent, skills, and gifts, they did not agree with your approach to your life. It was really just, but I think that in the end, they learned that it was really just a lot of fears and anxieties about your path or what you were going through. And I think that, hindsight is 2020, but this person, it also distilled a lot of fear within them when you couldn't. I don't know what this is about, y'all, but it's like something where you couldn't respond, or you couldn't feel safe, you couldn't let your guard down, you couldn't accept an offer, you couldn't have a peaceful, relationship with this person. Instead, it might have turned into a fight, or just a lot of misunderstandings about their behavior or yours, okay? But I think the root cause of this, if this was a domestic violence situation, this person, a lot of the root cause of domestic violence is like fear and communication issues. And I think that this person met you when you were really uncertain about the future. And this made them, when you ran away, or when you decided to take a more sovereign, independent pathway, this, it also opened up different pathways and opportunities for them as well, okay? So they were watching you for a while, okay? Working on your talent, skills, and gifts, and they were, they knew that you were dreaming of a bright future. And I think that now you have a bright future, or you have some notches on your belt, you have some accomplishments, you have successes underneath with you, and much of your fear and anxieties have passed. But when this person first met you, you were in no place to collaborate with them, and you cannot feel guilty for missing the opportunity, or for them getting mad about something that you did when you were under a tremendous amount of stress, fear, and anxiety, okay? Some of these people represent, some of these people could be your fluid relationships, right? And they've had a problem hearing about some of your intimacies and encounters, right? They felt they got enraged when they heard about you having sexual encounters. They got enraged. They got enraged when they heard about you having, sexual encounters with other people, and you were just like, look, I was just using those people so that I can work on my talent, skills, and gifts. Whoa. You know what I'm saying? Like, whoa. And I think that now that you let them know that you've really been sovereign throughout this whole thing. It wasn't that you were attached to some big D, or that you were just trying to be some flugazi, some floozy, out here promiscuous, that you were just under too much fear and anxiety. to relate to them, and this created a big discord when you were avoidant, when you were detached, when you were not paying attention or something, when you were off doing something. So we have the third house. Sorry you guys, I wasn't recording for the last couple of messages, but we have the third house coming out, and we have the emotions. So what's hidden from you or unseen from you? Definitely those emotions not expressed, right? Physical and mental states brought on by neurophysiological changes associated with thoughts, feelings, behavioral responses, and a degree of pleasure or displeasure. The element of emotions involves subjective experiences, physiological response, and behavioral response. Common emotions are happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, surprise. Emotions are specific reactions to event. They prime our bodies and are automatic and unconscious. Okay, so this is the opposite of consciousness. Emotions are different than feelings. Okay, and then we have morality that makes up the super ego part of your psyche. And then we have closure. Yeah, okay. So, and then on the bottom of the deck we have the common dream, which is chase. Okay. You might have started to feel like this person wanted to harm you or kill you because of this discord, okay, or this crossroads that they've been in for a long time, okay. This person, I think that there was just a lot of tendency to run away from issues in the relationship. I don't think that this person, there was an incompatible, there were incompatible expectations, okay. There were incompatible desires, and I truly feel like this person, they've had, what's hidden from you is a lot of their behavioral responses that are going on behind the scenes. And they have really been, some of them ran away from the issue, okay? But I think that some of you, this person ran away from the issues, and you might have had to get the authorities involved to handle it, okay? And this made you, when they ran away and you had to get the authorities, you found it to be very, you found it to be displeasure, okay? Because a lot of them knew that you were in a crisis. They knew that you were, struggling with a neurotic psyche. And if they did something, I think that like something where you might have felt like they were aware of some kind of challenge, that had been accentuated for you, and they kind of felt like an attacker, a monster, an animal, or like something that you needed to run away from, okay? With this discord, like fighting you when you were already, I feel like this person met you under extreme conditions. They met you when you were in an experience that did not involve them, right? They may have met you on social media, or they met you when you couldn't pole dance, or they met you when you were running away from something, okay? Running away from an attacker, running away from an abuser, right? So they had some really incompatible expectations, and some of them, they really do feel like an idiot now, because you were in a health and safety risk or crisis, where you were dealing with some unknown figures that wanted to harm or kill you, okay? So this discord they have been in have been extremely burdensome, right? Because it dealt with, it made them feel emotions. But the narcissistic part is where you have been the one that has had the challenge accentuated, and they have been getting irrationally and absurdly mad about you and your approach to your life when you've been under a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety. I truly think that in this situation, this person, something that you may have had to do to, you've had a fight with this person, a discord with this person, and some of you guys may have experienced a degree of pleasure with this person, but after having to get the authorities involved, there was a huge emotional shift, right? I think that it was a situation where, especially when you move to the authority, if you've had to like move to the authority in any way, you saw them as an attacker too. Okay. Because like imagine sitting there getting mad and unhinged when there's a challenge of your survival and safety being situated. So no. Okay. And I think that, what's hidden from you is finally coming to the light. You're healing it. And no longer running away from this issue. And getting your acceptance and closure, okay? Because, this person, it feels like with this pathway, it could feel like there's an imminent decision that they need to make, but it really could just feel like somebody that's lingering around, not ever making a decision, not ever planning to move forward, not ever, expressing the feelings, not ever, and I think that the longer that the situation lingers around or floats around and drift, that it increases the feelings of displeasure, okay? The longer that it takes, the least pleasure that you find in it, right? Some of them, they were avoiding, the relationship, or avoiding, something that was pertinent, something that was urgent, like you've been in an emergency, needing emergency care, right? And they had not been, they were off with the third house, right? They could have been off getting closure from their other relationships that didn't work out. For others, they were distracting, deflecting and displacing as a projection mechanism to avoid handling something that needed to be, something related to you that was urgent. And I think that the longer that they take to make changes, the more displeasure you find, like the less pleasure you find in it. Okay. And I think that the increasing feelings of displeasure is all the closure that you need, right? So I think that the closure that you're getting is where you realize that they were very close-minded, right? They were literally refusing to acknowledge a certain viewpoint or idea that they didn't want to listen to because it was an opinion that differed than theirs. And this was, some of it was because they were really emotional about it. And, hearing other opinions made them emotional. But it was really, a lot of them, it's reflecting back to you how they react when you express your emotions, right? Do you want to be with a man that doesn't want to listen when you talk? Like, some men feel like women should be seen and not heard, right? And this could definitely be a challenge around the third house, the communication and interaction. If you were expressing your opinions or being a woman with an opinion, being a girl boss or something like that, this person, they could have got angry and aggressive about that. I also feel like, they were just not safe to express to, or they were just refusing to acknowledge the fact that there was like a challenge that was accentuated within your life, and instead focused on something mundane, or instead they focused on something, another problem that they were having, relating to a specific approach to your life that you were maybe even a problem that you were having, an approach to a problem that you were having, um, or how you, your sovereign decision making. It was just that it's literally that they refused to acknowledge that that this was your viewpoint, or that this was your approach to your life, or that this was something that that you didn't really have many options around. Some of them are people of privilege, like if they're white men whatsoever, absolutely don't give a fuck, right? You're sitting up there with the liberty of a white man, and you have the nerve to like have a problem with my approach to my life. Like, I don't really think that like they were really helping you accomplish much, right? I think that they came around with a lot of expectations about how about your surroundings, and how you should engage with, your surroundings and environment and them. And it was you guys, just your opinions differed a lot. And it was not, they really did not consider your viewpoints much, right? And what you needed for yourself. And only you know what's best for you. I also feel like they were running away from the relationship in you. Maybe both of you guys were mirroring these energies, these defensive mechanisms. Um, by suppressing and rejecting, major characteristics of who you are, right? Some of them, this was a big, issue with their fluidity, and not wanting to accept, their sexual preferences and orientations and expressions. And they couldn't, it was literally a self-rejection first that you don't need to take personally. What's hidden from you is that a lot of them also, because they were a lot, especially with this morality superego, a lot of them started lacking a conscience because they let their like mental illness get out of control. And I think that they started to turn to people in the community with the third house. They started communicating and interacting with people who were angry, jealous, and fearful, right? And when you saw them interacting with people who were your attackers, people who were chasing you, right? That meant that made you feel like they wanted to harm or kill you. So it was not a safe dynamic, right? Um, so you literally just, especially if they started to deflect and displace onto people who were, to distract themselves, right, or with people or other things. I truly feel like you saw them as the same attacker as, from which you were running away from. You saw them as somebody who wanted to harm and kill you, because if they were already aware of a harmful situation that you were in, a crisis, a vulnerable situation that you were in, that means that their intentions were not to take care of you. Their intentions were not to be there for you. And sometimes fear and anxiety can overrule, right? Even despite the best intentions, they just started to feel like something that you wanted to run away from. Okay. These, some of these relationships could have dealt with violence or sexual assault. Or, these were people that really fell behind the cohort, right? Because of behavioral health issues, and fears and anxieties that they couldn't control. So, that's what I feel like is hidden from you. Group one, somebody, a rejection or a suppression, or a partner that grew angry, jealous, and fearful, right? There's been a fight with this person, and they have been failing to make an imminent decision about something. And so you can just take that a failure to decide is the decision. And I think that you can reach acceptance that gives you peace and promotes your healing, knowing that this was not, that this, some of it could not be reconciled, some of it could not be recovered, Because if they made you feel like, if they felt like harmful or attack, or that they were one of your attackers at all, then it's just something that created a lot of displeasure, right? It's not pleasurable, it's not safe, it's not comforting. And I think that you're here today to get a cognitive closure, and clear and firm answers, because there could have been something ambiguous about the situation, or where you needed to be motivated to seek information. Some of you guys went to the authorities to do an investigation. Especially if you do something in aesthetics or modeling, beauty, something where you have to have an increased security, because of your body or something like that. Okay, you guys have just been, a lot of you have been, this is not something that I'm like, oh, it was just someone who got mad about something, and they started rejecting, or they started to like get close-minded, or I don't even know how to describe it, but it's not something light. It definitely feels like you were in this position of like where you might have been, or some of you guys, you really feel like it really feels like you dealt with a violence or a sexual assault, and this person came around and they just started to, somebody's name starts with the letter E. They were like really, they scared you, I think, ultimately, right? I think that you were really scared, because their focus was not on providing support to you as a victim. Their focus was to argue about something, or argue about an approach to your life, where they really didn't want to hear your opinion. They were really narcissistic in that way, and I think that they just started to, their energy started to match that of your abusers, right? Especially some of you guys you have been survivors of abuse, maybe trafficking, maybe domestic violence, family violence, some type of traumatizing situation. And when they started to match that of your attacker or your previous abusers, that was like I think that was the sign that you needed to let it go, right? But the truth is that, with this discord that they were in, they really fell behind in life, okay? So let's reference. Good one, okay? I think that because you were a victim of abuse or something like that, some of you guys you approached the situation in a very sovereign way. And this was, this could have pissed them off, or you could have been seen as running away from a situation, right? The Three of Swords. Okay, yeah. Betrayal, heartbreak, right? Strength card. With the Three of Pentacles, I definitely see that this person is still very present in your energy. They still communicate with you. They still interact with you. But when you saw them talking to people who were angry, jealous, and fearful, I'm honestly about to start crying, because you guys were really abused in a situation. I don't know if this person was like the root cause of the abuse, or they were like, I don't know if they were the ones that started the abuse, but I think that they truly were not at all, like, some of you guys were just like, oh, I thought that you would have handled that situation totally different, right? They mishandled the situation totally. And you really felt, they really made you scared, right? It wasn't about fighting about different opinions and social, political issues. It was really the fact that they made you feel unsafe, like they were one of your domestic abusers, right? And this definitely brought up a lot of emotion, this discord with this person, because it created so much fear and anxiety. I don't know what they were doing. I don't even think that it was about the romance or the sex, or, you know what I'm saying, y'all? It was literally because you knew that somebody was jealous right? And you guys have been so traumatized. Some of y'all have really, they caught you when you were without a house. They could have caught you when you were homeless. Without everything that you needed, lacking security. You were a diamond. You were a diamond in the rough, y'all. And so this was something that you definitely had to stay strong about, because it was, instead of granting you a wish, they actually turned out to be one of your attackers, right? They actually turned out to be a bully, an attacker, a perpetrator, or like someone who was also angry, fearful, and jealous of you, right? And that was super hurtful. That was super, that felt super betraying, self-betraying, and betraying of the union, rejecting, certain characteristics about you and your approach to your life. When it wasn't about your characteristics and approach to your life, you should have been simply there to help, right? And I think that you finally are getting closure, I think, but this situation was, it definitely impacted your emotions as well, because it created so much displeasure where, it probably, if this was a romantic relationship, it probably should have, like, you expected it to be pleasurable, right? But the incompatible expectations, it wasn't just about incompatible expectations. It was also about somebody lacking a moral conscience. You might have just saw them lacking a moral conscience, where they were like, oh, I'm just deflecting and displacing onto people who are angry, jealous, and fearful about you. And I was like, that's the last thing that you should do with a victim, is to turn to their harassers and attackers and say, hey, come on in, right? They didn't want to accept your viewpoints when your viewpoint reflected, like, some of y'all, like this, and then the Knight of Swords on the reverse, they fell behind the cohort. They're left behind, right? It was like they didn't want to accept your viewpoints when it was literally not a viewpoint or an opinion, but some of you, this was literally for your safety. And when they ignore your safety constraints and boundaries, they were not in compliance whatsoever, right? And they turned out to be violent and sexually aggressive. Like, they may have desired you for sex a lot, right? But they were, you saw this as a sexual assault. Someone who, they could have just been stalking you on social media, engaging with you persistently, communicating with you because your body was on display or something like that, okay? Or something about you stood out from the cohort. And so it just felt like, if this was at work or a school or in a setting where your reputation mattered, it definitely feels like a sexual harassment. Like, especially if these are like authorities, people in the government, you saw them as violent and assaulting, and that was not the moral conscience, that was not the ethics of their office. They were totally not in compliance whatsoever, right? And they may have, like, they were very conditional with their offers as well. They were like rejecting certain characteristics about you. Some of them, they kept talking about like a bombshell, like, or they kept talking about skin color or something like that, or they kept talking about some ideas and viewpoints that just were not relevant to you. They were outdated, and they fell behind the cohort, chasing. They were truly chasing themselves, right? Okay, with their own anger, right? Jealousy and fear, right? Yeah, I knew that was coming. 10 of Pentacles. This relationship does not hold any value anymore, and they totally lost value. Some of them they lost at court. This discord that they were in at court, it was really ruled by their emotions and philosophizing about things. And this person, I think that some of them, they might have taken you to court to get a psychological or cognitive closure, because it was not really much to talk about. But I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't much to talk about, but I think that you might have spent a lot of time in court helping them helping them reach acceptance about their loss, or how they lost money and wealth in a discord, where they let their emotions overrule logic, right? they really were not able to move on when they saw your business take off and you get a high valuation, after they left. Some of these people were a part of the founding group or a part of your foundation, right? But they just turned out to be attackers, abusers, domestic violence, conflicts at work, reputation theft, right? And they were not at all involved in an objective experience. They were very subjective to their own issues, right? And I think that some of them, they went to court with you to heal and to reach acceptance and get closure. But this is literally not on my motherfucking legal expense. You can get your closure on your own dime, right? Some of you guys, if this was a family violence or domestic violence, this was definitely emotional at court. But this person, they lost security, right? They did not win at court, and it was, you call it what you want, you didn't win, right? Whether it was technical or by merit, you didn't win. For others, they really just lost a lot of secure placement within your life, talking to your enemies, going back to their ex, violently assaulting you, sexually harassing you, and were literally they were literally harassing you. Okay, so and it was weird because you're persistently engaging but not really listening to the viewpoint, right? So these relationships, some of them, they started competing for wealth, competing for money, and they lost, right? Some of them, they have to leave your life, leave your house, leave to go to prison, especially for some of them that were lacking ethics or a moral conscience in their office, right? They were too busy talking about some emotions with the Three of Swords, and we're just like, what emotions could you possibly have when there's a crisis going on? Like something where it was really anger, jealousy, and fear, right? The Queen of Wands, you're looking all good now, right? So, they're heartbroken because you look good now and you look happy and you're looking attractive, and they just kind of just like have to stay strong, after you stood up to the challenge and you were determined to advance, and now they're looking at you, looking all good over there like the Queen of Wands, and they're heartbroken seeing you move forward within your life where they get left behind, right? You got your closure. You were not overwhelmed by the emotions. You were just scared that they were like one of your attackers and abusers, and they were just too focused on a viewpoint or conflict about opinions or something like that, and they got out of control, battling you about your opinions, so much so that it led to them breaking their ethical or moral codes, right? And it was weird because they could be under oath in office rejecting certain characteristics that are protected by the law, right? So, this situation, they just started, especially as the Queen of Wands and the Ten of Pentacles, they started to chase you like an animal and an attacker and a monster. And you just found them to be very displeasurable after all that, right? The Ten of Pentacles reversed, they lost their wealth. Some of them, this was a competition, fight for money and security. Some of them, this means that they have to leave your life, right? But I think that all this communication and interaction that they're having with you and others is to try to reach acceptance, right? It was, the crazy part about it is they were, you were running away from them because they were an attacker. In their discord, when you get to the bottom of it or the heart of the matter, was them running away from themselves, okay? That's what's hidden from you, group one, at this crossroads where they haven't been able to move forward because of a discord about your life, your body, your approach. It really just made you not want to show up anymore. It made you not want to engage, interact, or be involved in this community. But I think that you are moving forward, you are getting your closure, and you are finding pleasure again as the Queen of Wands. And this is heartbreaking because they see that they don't mean anything to you anymore. That's what's hidden from you, group one. Let me know how that resonates, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hi, group two. Welcome to your selection. You chose this purple heart. Okay, so what is hidden? What are you about to discover? Okay, um, group 2. What's hidden from you? We have the child. Group 2, what is hidden from you? Okay. Group 2, what is hidden from you? Okay. And then on the bottom of the deck we have rich girl. Okay. Um, um, so it feels like, there are 2 children that love you. Maybe there are 2 children that love you. Or you seem like you're like the rich girl, no matter what your gender is, because you, like, some of you guys are colleagues, daughters, lovers, good friends, and it's related to some type of gift that you have, a talent, skill, or gift that you have, that you express, that people love, even people that you don't, even these children is what I'm hearing. Okay, so what's hidden from your group 2? Advice and listen. Okay. So I think that because they come out as like the child archetypes, they're not, I don't think that these are deep and tenacious relationships. I think that, oh my god, that's so stupid. I just looked up and I saw the word ass. So these, they're saying, I'm not gonna say they're saying, this is not a gossip video, but this could deal with a situation where these children, they keep looking at your ass. So these could be children that you don't know, and some of these children do not know you are not, like, that you're not their age. They, especially if they see like a particular approach to your life, it could feel like, you're not a child, you're like this rich girl, right? And you, some of them, these could be mature children, or children with a, like a big, like a mature stature, right? And so when you talk to these children, they're like, they realize that you're a rich girl and that you're not a child like them, right? They, some type of advice that you give some children is when they start to realize that, you're older than them, right? I don't know, this could be feeling like these could be teenagers even, like, so they can look very mature and grown, So, they could be very handsome and advanced, right? And so when you give them advice, they actually listen to you. They do listen to you, even the one, like, some that you might not ever see again, children that are strangers. Maybe you see them playing outside in parks, on the transit and stuff like that, and they realize that you're not a child like them, and it's because they find you to be pleasing, right? But it's something that you do to give them advice, right? I don't know why this is coming up, but it's so interesting, because I feel like some of you guys, you I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I'm like, wow, these children. I was thinking about a cougar. Like, I was thinking about this one time with my friend. I was over his house, right, and he was younger than me. He was like I consider him to be a child, but he was like only like 4 years younger than me, right? So I was like, I never would date somebody younger than me. I don't know why, but like I would never date somebody younger than me. So some of you guys, there are two children that love you that are young. They could be like younger than you, or you just haven't been really considering them because they're children, right? But like I would never, like I was thinking about this one time, like where my friend, I was over his house and then this old lady walked in, like, and was dead ass in the field, you know what I'm saying? So like she was like 45 years old, like 40 years. I'm like, whoa, like I'm like, how could you be attracted to someone who has an immature mind? Like, I don't know, I just feel like, how could you be attracted to someone who has like, I don't want to say that you can't be attracted to them, but sometimes some of these children, you have to give them a lot of advice. LOL. 10th house, career and success. Yeah, that kind of like matches the energy. A lot of these kids do see you out, working your career and being successful, right? So, if they're seeing you in public, you look very rich, friend. Like, you out here, you working your career, and they could tell that you successful. So they definitely, like, when they get gifts from you, or when they receive gifts from you or give you gifts, it's a beautiful exchange. Or they definitely feel like they have something to listen to. So I think there's something that you've been, maybe, I don't know if you've been worrying about this, or if you've been concerned about some children around, or some children, I don't know if these are children in your house, or if these are children in the community, these are children online, on social media. But whoever these children are, they definitely listen to your advice, right? Because they know that meant that you were successful in your childhood. Like, when you were their age, you knew exactly what to do, right? And that's the beautiful exchange that you can have with children. Even if you're like, even if you are, I think that it could be, to call it a double standard, but I think that a woman dating a younger man is less acceptable than a man dating a younger woman. For one, historically, there have been large age differences between women and men. For two, men are immature. And I think that if they see you and you are like this rich woman, some of them could be having these like daydreams and fascinations that you'll be like their sugar mama or something like that. And I'm just gonna shut that down. For me, speaking on behalf of all the divas, right? That we are not interested. I forget where we left off, but I think that when they see you out and about, y'all working your career, you're very successful. Okay, some of you guys could be wearing a baseball hat, or you can be wearing something to kind of subdue you a little bit. But I think that when you go out, you're truly looking rich, friend. Okay, and I think that it's beautiful when you relate to these children in the community, actually, because they're no harm. Friend, the children are not harm. But I think that they can make you uncomfortable because they keep looking at your ass. And like I said, some of these children are mature and advanced. And, I will just remind you guys of the age of the majority, which is 18 years old. You can do what you want to do. If whatever you're attracted to, just make sure that they are consenting bodies of the age of the majority. For others, you're not interested in them romantically, especially when you have to give them advice about their career, right? For others, they, these are children that could have been in competition with your gift, and they were not the rich girl. The force was not with them. So let's get into it more, though, from the unseen realm, okay? So, a lot of this is dream analysis, but we're working to expand. Group 2, okay? So, LOL. You out there trying to catch up with a rich girl, gonna get tamed, but look at them kids gonna get tamed, y'all. Y'all better. Them kids, it's acting crazy seeing you too, because they be big as you, like they're like, and I think that that's a new experience that, young adults could have. Like, you could be like, 25 to, 40, right? And you come across these mature children, and they're like the same age as you, right? And wearing the same clothes, and they're big, they're wearing the same things that grown people are, and I'm just like, I don't want to be in ages with the children, LOL. But I truly feel like sometimes when I see them looking all grown and dressed up, they really do look like adults, right? And so some of them, they're looking at you, and they wonder about your career and your success, but it might just come off as looking at your body. So these children are definitely looking at your body, friend, and I think that is coming up today, to tell you, to like that the children are not harmed, although they might be looking at your body, right? So, um, you know, and and I think that once you get to start talking to them, you like them, right? You like the kids. So, you like to see their growth and see how they apply your advice, right? Um, so let's get into it, group 2. That snake spirit comes out a lot. It's actually definitely been something reoccurring, okay? So, these children, where something is hidden from you, I think that they are, there is a mystery around some of these people that have been around since you were a child. I'm hearing particularly 2 children that have not maybe been around since you were a child, or they came around you because of your gift. And a lot of you guys were, you're very rich because of your gifts, your talent, skills, and gifts, right? But with this recurring dream, some of these children, they feel like a reoccurring conflict, right? These, we were talking about this with Tarot 2.0 and ChatGPT. Like, you have to be a wise sage in this matter, right? And recognize someone's disruptive and destructive patterns of behavior. What you're getting, especially with this wish fulfillment theory, is that you're finally, like, something where you're starting to ignore them because they have an unresolved problem that you cannot fix. And I think that when they see your riches and they see your gift and they see you through the 10th house with your career and your success, they are regarded as having they regard themselves as having a psychological ailment about you. That's not funny. So it could feel like, you or them are grieving because of a reoccurring conflict with these people. So you have to note it, right, friend? You have to know that these children have psychological ailments, also known as mental illnesses, that are clinically significant disturbances in their cognition, their emotional behavior, and how they regulate themselves. And then on the bottom of the deck, they feel like a big failure. Through the 10th house, around their career and their career and success when it comes to you, right? The reason why they keep having this reoccurring behavioral health issue with you is because you make them feel like a failure. And I know that you have been trying to teach them something about themselves. And maybe this is not, I don't think that the advice is unsolicited. I think that they come around looking for advice, looking for a method, looking for a way, looking for potential, right? And they want you to see their potential. But I think that this situation is an unresolved conflict with these children. And it highlights their personal weakness, fear, and inability to cope, right? Their unconsciousness is demanding to be understood. They want you to understand their consciousness so much. And I think that as a rich girl, you do, right? You do understand their consciousness, but I think that I don't know if you're ill or grieving about them. I don't know if you care about them. But I think that they are deeply tethered to you because of your talent, skills, and gifts, or your healing work that you do. Some of you guys, through the 10th house, your dream of healing, your revolution of healing, has made you, you were very successful with your revolution, friend, with your healing, through the 10th house, through your career. You guys actually tend to be these people's nightmare, right? You're actually your children's nightmare, right? Especially if they're like in the same, they can be children and be considered the same age as you. Also, and they're just known as like little variations in your story. These other children, they're just actually, they're not really loved. They're not really adored, or they weren't really successful, through the 10th house, through their career, and successful through their career and their public facing view. And on the public fronts, you might be, your dream is coming true, right? Where you help people avoid potential health problems. You heal the ill and the grieving. Some of you guys are literally improving health with what you do. Your innovation improves health. Maybe this is a technology or a tool that helps people understand the way that they've been communicating with their body and mind. And your success, whatever it is, even if this isn't like a healing dream, whatever your success is through the 10th house, it's your wish fulfillment energy. And they are, they feel like this is their biggest nightmare, right? Someone's name that starts with the letter J or S, and they tend to repeat themselves, right? It's like your dream have already come true. Is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing your dream have already come true, or they've been varied for a long time, right? And it just feels like they are not, what's hidden from you is that they actually, that, your relationships with your healing dream, or your relationships with these children have cultural implications and different interpretations from different cultures, is what I'm hearing. As wish fulfillment theory, I think that the interpretation worldwide, some of you guys are internationally known, and the interpretation, some of you guys, you leave very little room for interpretation because some of it is a health science that is not really up for debate, right? And so when you started, I think that this unresolved conflict where you address, like, this is literally like an addressing of someone's psychological illness, where they have actually, like, these are variations in your story where they have actually been like significant disturbances, right? With their emotional behavioral health issues, and their cognitive impairings. that you have not really, you reaching this scientific, you reaching this health science, or you studying the biology around something is actually their worst nightmare, because it means that they cannot continue to justify their pattern of behavior with as a psychological ailment, right? They have to, wake up and smell the roses. They have to resolve an issue on their own, because you being, your career and your success in the 10th house with your talent, skills, and gifts did not stop you from being a rich girl because they couldn't apply the advice and listen, right? It just feels like some of these people, you know, some of it feels like they were hidden threats, that they were actually a nightmare for you, right? That they were ambushes of betrayal that you were, unaware of or underestimated, right? Especially with this dead snake energy, it just feels like, especially with the wish fulfillment energy, they may have been an ambush of betrayal, but they're you are in you are protected from their illness, right? Some of you guys, you were protected from their illness. Someone started to someone, I think their worst nightmare was that they were left in an unresolved conflict, and you were acknowledged by someone, or someone chosen and protected from their illness, chosen to recover, is what I'm hearing. Okay, these people were dealing with something subconscious, struggling with sexual temptations when it came to you, especially if they were younger, or they saw you as a forbidden sex, right? They were calloused, evil, ruthless people. You definitely don't trust these children. You were just connected to them through your gift and learned that they had a psychological illness or a significant disturbance, right? Some of it was the significant disturbance was a ambush of betrayal, where you didn't really see them as a threat. And I would say that if there are children and you're an adult, they're not threats. But some of them, they've been with you since you were a child, or they're in the same age group as you, and they're just, this could be like authorities looking at them, or senior members looking at you and them, and you're just like the lover, the daughter, the colleague, and they're just like these random children, you know, that have a negative meaning, right? They're just people, like your authorities might just see them as people who have a negative meaning, and so they're not actually rich, they're not actually loved, right? And this was I think that it led to a big positive change for you: renewal, growth, knowledge, and wisdom, because it really did, dealing, I feel like when you addressing their psychological ailment, you just realized that they had a lot of grief, or that they were sufferers, right? That their body, that they had health issues, and health and behavioral health issues, right? So you were protected from them, and so that's why you were made very rich. But I think that you felt kind of ambushed by their betrayal, because some of you guys, maybe you weren't so ambushed by betrayal. Maybe you just did not know them, or maybe you just did not. This is the reason why you were surprised, is because it was not really a real conflict, right? It was just something that tended to be a nightmare, right? It just was like, oh my God, like imagine you're out in your career, right? You're out working. Maybe this is happening through social media, right? And I think that you started to get afraid. You started to become afraid because it was unknown of, like, what they were where they were why they were striking. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like something where you were like, oh my God, there are all these children, or even people in my age group, that do not have enough cognition to control their behavior. Like, and it was an unresolved conflict because some of y'all just were not really understanding where the conflict was coming from, y'all. But you don't need to overthink this matter. But I think that your healing dream coming true, and you having success through your career, is actually, like, they actually play a huge role and making you a success, because they took this journey, they take this journey with you, and you learn about their psychological ailments, and it actually serves the greater society in some type of way, to help people understand, like, help people come to readings just like this, and to make them, like, make people aware, make people aware of hidden threats, or make it unlikely that a hidden threat will betray you, or ambush you, right, without warning. So I think that's something that you went through, your mistakes and pain, where it's like something where they may have attacked you, they may have stalked you, they may have followed you around, they may have followed you across state lines. They may have, I'm hearing that they were, some of these people were extreme, seeing your house, you being successful, right? And so some of them started dumpster diving after your belongings. They started, breaking, entering, security breaches at your home, at commercial and residential properties. Some of y'all, you might have even been chased by these people. And if you have asthma, that's not good, friend. Okay. So, there may have been kids that, like, this can happen out in the public, like kids getting out of school, getting on the transit, coming to, get a bite to eat at the restaurant or something like that. And then they have a problem with you, right? Because you're like this rich girl, you might look their age, or you might be their age. And they're just like these unwanted children or these unwanted people. And you're like this lover, daughter, and friend, right? And so they can see you out, and some of them might have chased you down, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of them, running into somebody, running into the, I don't know, relating or being forced to address these people with a psychological ailment may have been one of the hardest things that you've ever had to do, because you had to, you had to study biology and take a whole metaphysical coursework to understand why somebody was in a conflict with you, friend, is what I'm hearing. And I think that you just got very, very scared. I don't think that it's like, oh my God, we beefing, come outside, let's throw blows. It's literally like you're not really understanding what, because you're this rich girl. You're like, cease and desist. I don't throw blows, and it's like they're out in the public getting visibly upset, you know what I'm saying? Even on social media, getting tough, trying to tussle, right? And it's just not your style or the atmosphere that you were going for. Like, these two children in your environment was not the atmosphere that you were going for, because you just were forced to analyze their psychological ailment. And after analyzing them, you might have gotten scared, right? And realized that they were, they're not in wish fulfillment energy. They have a health problem, where they're ill or grieving about something or suffering from something. And you're just there, I'm not going to say perfect health, but you guys are in really good health and very successful in your career. You're not having the same kind of ailments that they're having, okay? So your success, your healing dream has a cultural implication for you and the greater society at large, where you might address a cultural illness, some kind of illness that ran in a culture within your family. Okay, some of these children, they can come from your ancestry and family, even as well, and they just have this emotional behavior around you that has you scared. You know what I'm saying? So, especially someone's like name that starts with letter S and J or R, it's like something where you have very little, you're very, like you're very, you have very little engagement with them, interaction with them, or maybe, the advice that you give them, it doesn't really vary, right? You keep providing them with the same health science research and the same AI truths, and you working your career and giving advice and healing people with your healing dream. These messages have helped people regard their health, right? And so those who are in alignment, they adore you, right? But then they're like something where you gave them the analysis, friend, and some of these children, after learning about their psychological ailment, you got really scared, right? You're like, oh my God, like some of them, they were trying to like touch you or something like that. Like some of them wish they were trying to touch you, and like, if you have a psychological ailment, you cannot touch me. Okay, so no, 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 no. That's gross, right? And I think that, some of them, they started to strike you without warning, or they started to talk to you without warning, or they started to like engage with you and you didn't know them. Or they saw you with your career, right? And they grew calloused, right? Some of you guys were under a transformation when they met you. And they were, some of, you learned that a lot of them, they truly suppressed a lot of, negative emotions about you, and their behavior keeps erupting. Like you see, like the wise old sage, you keep seeing their behavioral pattern over and over again, where they feel threatened, they fear your sex, they or something where they might see raw sexual energy from you, or you in a forbidden sex or something like that, or they feel, they need your intimacy. They feel inexperienced around sex because they're children, and you're just like, I'm not having sex with a child. If you don't have, tantric sex, sacred sexuality, then I will direct you to the sacred sexuality readings that have been on the channel. And a lot of you guys are you're like, I'm not intimate with you. I'm in wish fulfillment energy, and you are just a significant disturbance that's making me scared. Like, I think that what it came down to is that these children, the reason why they are a nightmare here is because you are their nightmare, right? They are unresolved. And I think that you're just starting to ignore them because the people who, I think that there are a lot of health problems that you're solving here. And if they have not resolved yet, it means that they're literally, they have an incurable malady, right? And that's scary, and it's kind of scary, for them to, it's kind of scary for them to come around with a psychological illness, right? That's threatening, right? So let's reference, okay? The Three of Pentacles, okay? These are children that they collaborate with you in the fact that they take your advice, right? But they, with the Page of Wands in the reverse, they have, I don't think that some of them are not, so it doesn't feel like it's so threatening with the Page of Wands, but it could be abusive, work collaborating. These are probably people that you've worked with since you were a child. They've been around since you were a child. But they're working on you. They're working with you, because they are ill and that they are grieving. Okay, you or them are grieving. With the Page of Wands, it just feels like this situation is not working out for you, and so they're coming around to try to get closure. That kind of feels like a continuation from Pile 1. They're coming around to get closure, or to master themselves, right? To master something that's unresolved, within themselves. And I know that it's not your responsibility to resolve them, but they need your intimacy, or they need to talk to you about something. They need to hear your stories of intimacy, because they feel so inexperienced and so, not successful in their career. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just about being inexperienced at sex, unless your career is related to sex, right? I don't know. But they've been in conflict with you because of your sex or because of your success, right? And they didn't get the same results, right? They were not the rich girl like you are. So, they've honestly just felt like a big headache, right? They just, some people that you wish that you didn't have to work with, they're often triggered, and that's where you can apply that sage energy from the Tarot 2.0. It's like you see their pattern so clearly when they witness something attractive about you. It triggers their like psychological ailment, right? And I think that you just are starting to ignore them. They might need to come around you and listen to your advice and your stories, and you'll find them if you check their energy. If you're ignoring them and you find them as a Three of Pentacles, just know that they're working by themselves, or they're just people that you ignore, that they are like kind of looking. That's what you need to know. That's what's hidden, is that like people that you ignore are they're working to resolve their own personal issue, right? Some of them are not threatening, but they do have a lot of pessimistic mood swings, right? With the Queen of Cups reversed, and it definitely feels like they're not really abundant in their emotional realm either. It's like, even if you're the same age as them, they're like so inexperienced at the craft, y'all. Like, they're just not, they were not successful because they have a mental illness, or they have a some of them have learning disabilities. So, they're definitely riding that short bus for him. And, I'm not making fun of them. But it really just feels like they have really poor health, right? Mentally, right? So, they come around with the Eight of Cups because you're this rich girl, and they want to feel like they have more options in life, right? And you actually do serve as a significant disturbance. So with the Page of Wands reversed and the Queen of Cups, they frequently have emotional tantrums about you, okay? And you were like, the crazy part about it is, some of you guys, strangers or not, if they're throwing these emotional, wow, pessimistic mood swings and having volatile tantrums, and they're not actually, what I'm saying? Some of you guys are really just ignoring them because you're so rich, right? You have to just send them cease and desist letters. You have to tell them to stop, or you completely ignore them because, it becomes clear that they're mentally ill here, right? And I think that because you are a healing dream, you heal psychological ailments, right? You provide information to help people get back into their body and mind, right? And help them, a lot of you help people grieve as well. So I think that is your role. But I think that you very, very, like, your advice doesn't really vary, right? Because it's a health science and it's connected to truth. Your wish came true because you applied the scientific methods, right? But for them, they just keep coming around with the same pattern, with that of significant disturbance, right? And it's just like not. They feel incurable, friend, and that's not safe to be around, right? With the Page of Wands, if they're still having these, disturbances, right? If they're still having these disturbances, they're just like, they're out of options within their life with the Eight of Cups, and they just want, some of them, they try to come around and be positive, but after so many swings and after doing something, especially with the Queen of Cups, sometimes they're like, oh, we felt nurtured by them in some type of way. You didn't feel nurtured by a child. They're inexperienced, for one. And two, they are actually the opposite of nurturing. With the Queen of Cups in the reverse, they actually just throw tantrums. They actually do, they might have a lot of emotional behavior with the psychological ailment, but it's really just like a projection of their own failure, right? It's just them throwing a tantrum about their own failure, them not having deep emotions for you as a partner or for someone else, but for them to try to extract some type of gratification to soothe their failure, right? Or to help them cope with their failure, right? Especially if they tried to come for your house, or if they broke into your house or did something negative at all, they're regarded as big failures. And the Queen of Cups is not, in the reverse, is not nurturing, not emotionally influential. And they might be emotionally influential with their disturbing emotional behavior that they cannot control, but that's only to do something cold and manipulative to cope with their own failure, right? It's not actually relating to you or someone else, right? And I think that you do teach them, and you have been trying to teach them, but I think that you're getting to a successful place in your career where you can really ignore them, and your teachings are what they are, and if they can't apply it, then that's just not your problem, right? And so they come around and they're constantly needing to work on their ailment, but they're not actually being successful. And this is what's hidden from you, is that they're actually not successful. They just keep coming around because they want more options. And some of them, if they're fluid within their sexuality, or if you had a romantic relationship with them in the past, shared a house with them in the past, they just see you as successful and want to be a part. They're lacking successful opportunities in their life or options, and they see your house through the 10th house as, you're out giving all this advice and, fulfilling this healing dream, and they have just been not successful. So they see you as a successful option, and they're like, okay, what if we can work for your organization? What if we can work with you? And I think that some of you guys, after so many disturbances or having to grieve something that they, something that they done to ambush you or hurt you or harm you, you were totally not, they can't work here. You know what I'm saying? And so, the Three of Pentacles is someone that you're pretty much ignoring, okay? Someone that has an unresolved issue, and, because they cannot control their disturbances, you just ignore them, okay? The Three of Wands reversed. Yeah, not the Empress, right? If these were third parties, they tried to be third parties, they were not. They were not the Empress, friend. Some of them, they have big stomachs, okay? And if they have a big stomach, then they are not the Empress, man or woman, okay? And then the Knight of Pentacles. I think that you may have had investments before, or you were, yeah, I think that before you may have had investments, but they were really, I think that you might have sent them cease and desist, or told them that you didn't want to work with them anymore, and they still will come around even if you ignore them, right? And I think that in this matter you might collaborate to get, for the breakthrough, but with the Eight of Cups, it just feels like they don't have a purpose in their life. They're aimlessly drifting, that they keep having the same pattern of disturbance, and they literally look like an evil or a lost soul. You know what I'm saying? They look like a variant that's not successful, okay? They were big. Someone's name is Alana or something. They were big. These people, they were not the rich girl, okay? They were not the Empress, right? So with this Three of Wands, it could have felt like a stalling in movement, a blockage, a postponement, because there was like a real fear here, y'all. I think that was really something that you needed to be aware of, because these children were, they're living nightmares and you're living a fairy tale dream, right? They're failures with psychological ailments, and you're rich, So, they get really ignored, and especially if this is about your romantic partner. Your romantic partner is trying to help you resolve this conflict as well, but they really are ignored by your partner a lot. They're really detached by your partner. Your partner is very detached. Their partner did not see them as the Empress. They're cold, and if your partner did use them as, displacement or deflecting mechanisms, they did not get the same level of honor, right? Some of you, your partner, they disturb your partner, right? They could trigger your partner because it's related. They find something relating to your gift, something that you express or teach, and your partner is very cold and detached, just trying to help you and them resolve their conflict, but they're not. With the Empress in the reverse, they're not the highly receptive one, where there was like a grandest expression or fertility, a creative explosion, right? Through the 10th house, very successful with your creative and intellectual pursuits. And so, they were not the Empress. They were not successful in their creative and intellectual pursuits, but they have been an ambush or a conflict that have disturbed you guys, that have triggered you guys, that have made you scared, right? Some of y'all really had to go to AI and had to learn about a cybersecurity, because these children had a pattern of disturbance that made y'all scared, okay? You and your partner, right? And so these children, they keep coming around because they feel so insecure about the way that things ended, their emotional insecurities were uncontrollable. No amount of advice that you can give them could ameliorate their own personal feelings of failure within their life, especially if they're like in the same age group as you. You're known as the daughter, the lover, the colleague that is adored, and they're just people around as variations of you and not getting ignored, right? So that's why they feel so emotionally insecure and keep having the same pattern. But that's not your responsibility anymore. It never was, to be truthfully honest. That's what I'm seeing, group 2. Let me know how this resonates, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hi, group 3. Welcome to your selection. You chose the yellow heart emoji. LOL. Okay. Oh my gosh. Group 2, we discovered a psychological illness. But let's get into group 3. What is hidden from you? What will you discover? Group 3. Okay. We have birds. I'm hearing 2 clean birds. 2. Okay, somebody was a clean bird. Oh, okay. Group. Okay, period. Right? Okay, good, Jen. What you doing? Okay, we see you over there all bridal and boudoir. Like, okay, good, Jen. I'm getting that, like, don't get distracted, friend. I know that, you're just working on your communication, okay? Because, I think that something, you could have been like, what are you doing with all those birds? Like, man, like, you probably was like, it's something hidden about this good gent. What are you doing with all those birds, right? I'm like, you can't possibly be a good gent. You know what I'm saying? Like, something like that. But this person, I think that as a good gent, they have, like, they have this big heart, and I think that, they might have had these birds, right? These different illusions and things, right? So you're like, they're a good guy, but they, some of them are concerned about the children with the psychological ailments, or, the psychological ailments did perpetuate an illusion, friend. This was harmful to everybody because this was like a collective psychosis that we shared with these, with these children or with these birds, where it was a discord that, that was a big distraction, right? But I think that it has helped you guys focus on your communication and improve your communication, and you're finally starting to understand what they've been talking about. Because it's good, Jen, they have some concerns, right? Some birds, and you're just like, I'm not concerned about no birds, right? Something where their communication have helped you, your communication with this good Jen have improved since, have enhanced a lot since you started to learn what you value around these birds. LOL, that's not good. Group 3, what's hidden from you? Okay, what's hidden from you, good Jen, right? Okay, yeah, I think that, you were undergoing a big change, friend, right? And, there was a lot of stars around you, and I think that things could have gotten heavy, confusing. Some of these people do reflect problems and issues that you do need to solve. Like, there definitely feels like a problem, okay, that needs to be solved, that you can't just ignore. With this bird energy, it could represent an actual problem. But most of this is very small issues. Because when people saw you with this good gent, they knew that this good gent came around. They catalyzed a big change, is what I'm hearing. Okay, they catalyzed a big change, and nobody was prepared for it. It made people ill seeing your good man, right? And you, I think that you have been used to having such, I'm not going to say you're used to having trash men, but it could feel like you have, you've been through a lot of changes already. And so this last change, it may have been it may have been turbulent, but it was deep and tenacious, friend. Okay, a good gent is deep and tenacious. So that's the beautiful part of this whole thing, is that no matter what, illusion comes across this person's table, they remain, loyal and steadfast with you. Okay, they are very, very steady, very tempered and good measured, and they don't take rash and impulsive and hasty decisions like you're probably used to, right? You're used to abusive men. You're used to men in a power struggle, men with uncertain futures. These men, they know their future, or they've already, they're ethical men, they're compliant men. They already have they already know their future. Okay, they've already, I think that some of you guys, you might have just been dating growing up and just dealing with, partners that didn't have their career and financial situation figured out. And, you're not having this problem in this situation. I think that the biggest problem that you have, what's hidden from you is your good gent, right? So something where some important communication with your good gent is hidden from you, especially related to your insurances or your financial fields, and that these birds have just been illusions and distractions. You guys need to focus on the financial field or insurances with this person, because a good gent is going to bring you that bag. You know what I'm saying? They're going to bring you the bag. They're not going to let some hoe out there, try to bust their coochie wide open for attention. LOL. So LOL. It just feels like, you're not really, what's hidden from you is like some issues that they've been having, problems that they've been having, fears and illusions that have maybe even subconscious or hidden from them. But you guys have been going through a big change and adapting together, is what I'm hearing. If you're already aware of this person, but some of you guys, you have to adapt through a change to get to this good gent. Okay. Asking versus telling. What did I say? I think that your biggest problem that have been creating distractions and issues in your relationship is the asking versus telling component. This feels like a lot different than the first pile, where the gents, okay, they didn't really want to hear an opinion that differed than theirs. Or maybe, this could be them, and they just don't, they could be dominating and authoritative and masculine, and some of them, I think that they're a good guy. I just think that, you guys you could be really feminine, or you could be fluid, but something where, there's a norm around maybe the gender roles. This could be a problem. But some of you, this could be a norm around a gender role. But for others, this person just naturally dominates you, and you cannot deny, right? So some of you guys, you take their order and you take their command very well. But I think that I don't know if this could become a struggle for power, because they seem good, but I think that, it could make someone in the connection could start to feel, disgruntled when they feel like they don't have enough power, or they feel like they're always getting told what to do, and I definitely see you guys, you feel like a humble servant, but, they tell you what to do a lot. And, I think that them demanding and commanding you could create resentment, friend. I'm not gonna lie. you might be a, submissive and traditional woman or something like that, or take on a traditional role. But we don't talk about, nobody talks about this actually, that a lot of women or in traditional kind of relationships, where you are, you're the nurturing, sensitive, and caring one, right? You're the one, providing caretaking, and you're the one serving their every need, right? But they serve your needs in different ways, for one. But I also think that when they could just start telling you, what to do and how to serve them, right? And some of them, they can start to expect certain things. So I think that what's hidden from you is, like, especially like in this reading, definitely be discerning about people who pretend to be a good gent, but they really just want to possess you and tell you what to do, right? So don't bend to anybody's will that's not that doesn't have a tact, in telling you what to do, right? So there are definitely stars around this person. I definitely, they definitely long for you and wish for you and see you as bright, right? You have the Aquarius, LOL. This could be an Aquarius man, or this could be an Aquarius that is a bird too. So let's pull messages from the unseen room. Let's do two friends. Okay. This doesn't feel so heavy about what you're discovering, but let's get some messages and see if we can give any more information. What are you about to discover? What's hidden from you? Okay. This relationship has gone under a lot of changes, and I think that you have a vision together, perhaps. And so if you guys have this like vision together, and they start telling you what to do around the project and stuff like that, I think that just always be courteous and speak to your partners, right? Even if you have this mutual dream together, speak to your partners with a lot of tact, and like be, just because you share a home or share a work environment with someone doesn't mean that you get comfortable enough to start like bossing them around or having an authority over them, right? And this is a big lesson that I've had to learn in my home as well. I was never the type to tell somebody what to do, but sometimes when you're dealing with someone who's lazy or sad, or deals with anger issues, their shadow selves could be very deeply triggered in being surrounded by, your successful vision. So you need to make sure you're in a home or in a work environment with people who don't conflict, because they're deeply triggered, right? They're too insecure, surrounded by your successful selves and your vision, right? So a good gent is not going to be lazy, not going to be sad, not going to have rage, right? Not going to meet you with like unacceptable qualities, right? So you might be wondering if these birds, right, if they're unacceptable qualities, and I will say that you will find most of it to be accepting. But I think that I think this is just a message to beware of people projecting their ideal selves. And so when it's time to like work and collaborate, their shadow selves get triggered into like a power struggle, where they're not actually successful. They're just, they just might have like they might see the vision or want to bandwagon off of the vision, or they I forget what I was saying, group 3. But it just feels like, some people could, they could have the best intentions to collaborate, but then their shadow selves are, triggering their insecurities, and so they're not able to like fulfill their vision, right? A good gent is not going to be cruel. They're not going to be someone who's enraged. They're not going to be someone sad, lazy. They're not going to be triggered, They're not going to be insecure. They're going to be successful people that don't feel inferior or immoral, right? So you will have a lot healthier working relationships with them, right? And asking, asking them to do things won't be as big of a problem. Telling them to do things won't be as big of a problem. But just to be mindful, always ask people, right? Just always have a tact and, in asking for something around your vision, right? Unless you're being intentionally rowdy, you wanna make them horny mad. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you wanna make them horny mad, but if you're not making them horny mad, just always be tactful, friend. So let's pull from the unseen realm. Okay. Energetic theory. Okay. We have karma. We have the teeth dream. And then we have the dream is the liberation from the spirit, is the liberation of the spirit from matter, from the pressure of the external. Excuse me, what am I talking about? This is one, like, I've read this quote so many times, like, I'm over here jumping around it. But anyway, the dream is the liberation of the spirit from the pressure of the external nature, a detachment of the soul from the feathers of matter. Okay. Some of you guys with this birds thing, I think that this is a common problem that you're having, where your good gent is met with somebody with bad teeth. And so I know you're like, so what, right? Some of you guys don't care about bad teeth. I'm not gonna say bad, you can't have bad teeth, like you can't have methamphetamine teeth, right? But you definitely, there's definitely someone who has a vanity issue around their teeth. Some of this, they do get rejected a lot because of their teeth. Okay. And so some of them, they were also rejected by your good gent, right? And I think that, vanity is fair, to be honest, right? Because I will say that beauty has offered the true emotional security in the matter. But I feel like the birds are people who are, this is a big problem that you're having, perhaps. This is somebody who has a problem with their teeth. Or some of you guys have karma for talking about somebody's teeth, right? LOL. I think that is really because somebody got, I think that you have really nice teeth, friend. And everything on you could be natural. Some of you guys, you didn't go to Turkey to get them big teeth, But, I think that some people with bad teeth are a part of the historical foundation, okay? And so it has been a profound collision where these two perspectives have come to pass, where they may have been stars before, but, I think, and we can see this clearly in social media, right? That, if we saw this whole wave of people going to bleach their skin, get BBLs, and, truly alter the entire bone structure of their teeth, that means that they were deeply triggered, right? Some people, they have anxieties about their teeth because they're growing old. And your teeth will, you might lose teeth growing old. Your teeth will weaken. Your teeth are bones, right? So, if you're growing older, some bad things can happen to your teeth. That's just life. And that's what you need to accept within life as well, okay? Some of these people, though, you came around and you started, like, maybe you were really communicative, maybe articulate, expressive, speaking a lot, right? And they were unprepared for your big, bright smile. This is a profound collision. And this is not just in this matter, but you will find this around a lot of, especially those who are from PAL 2, and you might struggle with the cultural implication around your mouth and teeth, right? Someone's name is Garrett or starts with the letter G or letter L. They were big L because the cultural implication here was that you had a beautiful smile and teeth, right? and your expression and your communication, it was just really highlighted in a group, right? And people who, sometimes they might not even have bad teeth. It could literally just be an anxiety about, you know, like they could just not know how to communicate well, right? And so they don't know how to hold their mouth, or they don't know how to, their teeth were not bright. Some of them, their teeth were not bright. And so if there are people going running to go get this plastic surgery for teeth and body, just know that the insecurity and the anxiety about the physical appearance is deep enough, right? This is the deep mind, right? The anxiety is deep enough for them to go and fundamentally alter it, to change it to something that's more aesthetic-y, right? More something that they feel is more attractive, or has a that has a greater rate of acceptance. Some of these people, people will talk about, people will talk about teeth. People will talk about attractiveness. You will get dragged for being unattractive, and that's just like, honestly, I'm not a vain person, and I'm very body neutral, but vanity is fair, right? Because the worst people in my life have been the most hideous people, right? So something about work though, okay? If these people are at work, like if you're a stripper or something like that, y'all, and you come around and you have this big beautiful smile, in your culture, or from your foundation, this was not common, okay? Fran, your throat chakra, it was not just about how it looked, it was about your communication. And they feel very embarrassed. And some of them, you might have, like, it might have been a ridiculing, honestly. And some of you guys have karma from this. You have karma from, like, I don't think that some of you might have been intentionally trying to ridicule them or embarrass them for not being assertive, or for not being, I think that it was really like something where you ridiculed them for not being assertive, not having any money, something where they didn't have enough money to fix their teeth, and so you were wondering what they were doing with their time and energy. Why are you sitting up there with bad teeth? It's like some of this is like, it's not just for aesthetics. If they had birth defects or something like that, or, it was really truly something that, stopped them from, it could, like, bad teeth could stop you from, could lead to malnutrition and a poor diet and a lack of oral hygiene. Like if their breath stinking or something like that, like you just like, if I see bad teeth, I immediately think that your breath stank. It's not just about how it looks, it's about the fact that it might be lacking hygiene, and I'm very fair with that, with that vanity concern. Like I'm very fair about that. Like, don't come around with your breath hot, so. And some of them, they just feel like you deleted their existence because they, people chose better teeth. And it's like literally, sometimes it's literally a choice for reproduction. And so like, I'm not reproducing with someone with bad teeth. If you have bad teeth because you were on a methamphetamine, or because you had, because you were on, because it got knocked out or something like that, some type of lifestyle factor, it really is because you're inferior, right? And lacking self-confidence, lacking the wherewithal, right? So I think that, or, if you have bad teeth because you're old, also, that's something that's not in your control, right? But, a lot of these people, some of these are strangers, where, where you come from, your foundation, they feel like, the people with bad teeth, they represent the previous states of existence. They represent something that hadn't evolved, like, it's like if you have like a chipped tooth, bad teeth, they're not bright. It just feels like it represents powerlessness, right? Because they can't communicate, right? And I think that some of them were deceptive. Some of them were, not assertive, right? Having poor diet and poor health is also a choice, right? And for me, like, I don't know, sometimes seeing bad teeth could mean that, like, it looks like you're dying, right? or that they just hadn't evolved their teeth. You know what I'm saying? Like something where if they were born with bad teeth, that means that they did not have a good reproductive cycle, right? And so this was very egoic. This karma, this about teeth, right? It was very egoic. And some of you guys, you come from the same teeth issues, right? Some of you guys, they're close people in your family and friends that have bad teeth, right? And so I think that it was never about teeth for you, but it was about someone's ego collision about your teeth, right? Just because you have bad teeth doesn't mean that I'm going to stop like expressing myself, or that I'm going to stop speaking up, or that I'm going to, you know, have this like, you know, compassion fatigue for your suffering. That's not going to make me stop living my life, right? So with this energetic theory, I think that um, this matter about teeth that's hidden from you, it's not something that we want to talk about out loud, because we must never speak of certain goblin intelligences. We must never speak of this consciousness, all right? Because what it means, you know, we're going to keep this between us at Felicia Trees Tarot, okay? Because what this could mean is that, like, you know, it's very vain. The goblin intelligence that you're receiving, it is vain, right? And so we know that people went to go get those BBLs because they didn't have natural coat bodies. They were squares, right? And so there was an incentive for you to go and fundamentally change your body and become a transgender, to look like a woman or to look more womanly, right? There was an incentive for you to do that. That means that there was a real vanity concern within society. If you felt like you need to go get them big teeth, that means that your teeth were really fucked up, right? Right. If you needed to lighten your skin, that means that there were real challenges of colorism, right? But I think that what's really bad in this situation is like what's hidden from you is someone's karma for a choice that they made out of free will that was really an anxiety about their physical appearance, right? It's okay that you have anxieties about your physical appearance. Everyone probably will have anxieties about their physical appearance, because it really is just like a fear of rejection. But rejection is a natural occurrence within life, and you, no matter if you have a BBL, big teeth, and bleached skin, you could still get rejected, and they did. A lot of them did get rejected, right? But there was, with this energetic theory, there was, you know, you are having an intuitive download for a deeper pull of this hidden thing, to how it's been functioning. What you're really learning is that this was a matter of their free will. Something about their teeth being bad was a matter of their free will. Okay? It's the way that you take care of yourself that will reflect your teeth, right? If your teeth, especially if it was about your teeth being bright, if your teeth are not white and bright, that's a direct reflection of your oral hygiene. Okay? That's not your problem. Some of them, they dream to have teeth like yours, right? Someone's name that starts with letter A or something like that. They dream to have a big, beautiful, bright smile like yours. But again, pointing back to your free will, if you never got your teeth fixed, that was not your priority. So that was your free will and not prioritizing your own teeth, right? Some of this, if this isn't about teeth, this is about some other matter that was really a choice of free will, okay? And I think that you will get back to wholeness, because a lot of this, especially like karma coming up next to this energetic theory, it was like Carl Jung's theory of changing consciousness begins to sense the gravity of its own historical foundations. I think that your consciousness, what's hidden from you is, the state of your changing consciousness, right? It was the effect of your cause, right? Your healing, especially if you guys are here from PAL 2, your healing dream came true, and there are cultural implications here. And so this is changing consciousness, and it begins in the center of gravity. And what's pulling you, the deeper pull of gravity, is it's pulling you towards a historical foundation where it's a ancestral problem, where the cultural implications that changed, like where the consciousness changes, is where they stop projecting anxieties about their physical appearance or their security, their scarcity trauma, right? Especially those who cannot. Like, it also, their communication is also a free will in the matter as well. You might be like, oh my God, but my teeth are bad. I have anxieties about talking and people judging me for my mouth or something like that, right? That's an ego perspective that you indulge in at your free will, right? Chip was accepted. Old man teeth, accepted. Your communication problem, where you don't know how to articulate, is a literacy problem, probably, that where historically you didn't learn how to read and write, right? That was your free will. Your free will to not communicate, your free will to not learn, not to expand your vocabulary, not to, exercise your liberties that our historical foundations work so hard for, right? So, especially if these are old people in your foundation, you will have to tell them what to do a lot, right? Okay. But you asked it of them because you know that they're not really, liberated. So you have to kind of push them towards a steady aim, okay, and define things for them. Define a direction for them. But some of these people, if there have been fights, challenges, problems, right, where people, a lot of people put up a lot of different illusions to hide their anxieties about their physical appearance, to try to project something vain, right? But a lot of this, I think that what was hidden from you is, you needed to, the consequences of a previous state of existence where there were bad teeth, you maybe humiliating or embarrassing somebody for something, okay? And I think that this consciousness is like, this is a conscious recognition of your inner gradient, right? From the historical foundations to this healing dream becoming actualized and having a cultural implication that shifts the consciousness, that changes the consciousness to something better, right? Where previously, people from your cultural group lacking, or from your foundation, your historical foundation, lacking bad teeth, this is the center of gravity where you're like, this is like pulling you towards the center of gravity where you need to address something that's been vain, okay? Or something that has consequences, right? Like I said, we must never discuss the goblin intelligence sometimes, right? And there is karmic fallout for addressing these vanity issues, like, because it means that some people will feel embarrassed or ridiculed, or it's just true that they can't. The consequences of their bad teeth is that they can't speak up, or that they have too many fears of rejections, or they just they truly are not attracted to the bad teeth, right? Does that make sense, friends? Okay. Tough stuff, tough emotional heaviness, tough emotional gravity in this situation, because when we look back, you getting pulled back to the historical foundation is, it forces you to recognize your inner gradient, as a, like, reflecting your consciousness, returning you to wholeness, and deciding a fate or deciding a future, from this embarrassment, right? And I think that you're embarrassed too. You could be embarrassed for them when they, when they come around with bad teeth. When your family and friends, come around with bad teeth, they look inferior to, the dominant culture. They look inferior to the cause, right? Or they do something out of their free will to place themselves in an inferior position. Okay, they always do something bad, right? And it's like you can't you know, make up an excuse, you know, to harm someone because your teeth are bad, or you have an anxiety about your physical appearance that you can't control, you know. And so I think that that's where you can hold them responsible for their free will in the matter. You chose to have a poor diarrhea. You chose bad oral hygiene. You chose, not to get your teeth fixed. Maybe you said, "Oh, I was lacking money." That's your own, lack of resource, like using money as a lack of, as a reason as to why you cannot move forward in life. It really does represent them being powerlessness. Them being powerless, them not having enough confidence to be assertive, them feeling inferior. Some of you, maybe they were the ones that tried to embarrass or ridicule you, and the karma that came back to them was really bad, right? Or maybe you started to, to ridicule them and embarrass them because truly it was a projection narrative, right? With this energy theory, it was an ego perspective that collided, where where it was really the fear of their own rejection about your beauty or your teeth in some type of way, right? And something where they were not even articulate enough anyway, and you might have started embarrassing them or ridiculing them with your expanded vocabulary, your big expressions. It's like you should have never started talking about Pal 3. What's hidden from you is that they could be trying to ridicule you or embarrass you, but you are a star, and your teeth shine bright, your beauty shines bright, friend. Your beauty is very validating, and we can tell that you didn't have the same experience, right? So, I think that, when you start speaking up about things, they are unprepared for it, right? They're unprepared for you to get your point across and start, it's like something where they do something bad out of a free will, and you have less sympathy for their woe or their previous state of existence, right? Some of them did have, plastic surgery. They did go get these things fixed, but that's not how you really look, and you always carry that burden of not being natural, if that's not, you not being naturally accepted, right? It'll always be, your own internal rejection. But you chose to get the plastic surgery. You chose not to have, not to take care of yourself or to not express, right? And I think that when they do something bad towards you because you're there exercising your free will, being attractive, speaking up, getting your point across, it might indirectly embarrass them or ridicule them. But some of it, you might retaliate, and especially if they try to steal your reputation with something negative. I think that you always just like you always care how others view you, so you don't seem like the type of person that would just like offer up a ridicule or embarrassment. But if they want to talk about Power 3, I think that you most definitely overpower them, you know what I'm saying, with your work, with your deeds. And if you want to ridicule them and embarrass them, you have that strong power as well, friend. Okay? And some of you guys that you decided that was their fate, was to ridicule them and embarrass them, especially if they tried to ridicule and embarrass you, right? It was all an ego collision narrative projection, onto your mouth and beauty. Like someone's name is Garrett or something like that. Your big bright smile made a lot of black people mad, you know what I'm saying, because they were growing old, or because they were just not, they had that free will in their life, and they just did not, have a steady aim to improving themselves. So they just did not have the same level of attractiveness. And they might have tried to do something to embarrass you or ridicule you or to conflict with you in a way. And it was just, all you did was point them to the historical foundations and how you've had a profound change in your consciousness from then, right? So let's wrap, friends. The world, lacking closure. They're still, hurt and mad about their bad teeth. Oh, whoa. I don't give a fuck, right? You're the emperor. It was literally a matter of their free will. With the Four of Swords, there's no, your good gent is loyal to you. There's nobody, they're thinking about this deeply. They just feel burdened by, people who keep coming around with the ego collision, arguing about your mouth, right? It's like they're really envious of it. So, and you can tell that, by this good gent, and that the emperor, that you're the attractiveness that they, you're at their level of attractiveness, that they're fine with, how, nothing bad happened to your good gent. And this whole ridiculing, right? Or these deep fears that they projected about their mouth, right? And their communication. So I think that they're truly, they're lacking closure. They don't know how to accept the fact that your man stayed loyal to you, or that your man chose you because of a beautiful smile that you had. Something where they're like, you don't feel bad for having a preference of a nice smile. Don't feel bad because their teeth and their smile, or their expressions, or their consciousness are, a big part of it is their free will. And it's not just about your physical appearance why your man is loyal to you. It's because you had a steady aim to improving yourself. Their self-esteem and their level of attractiveness and their fears of rejection are not your responsibility and not your man's responsibilities. And that's what makes them a good gent as well. A good gent knows when to put up those boundaries. A good gent is discerning. A good gent is not going to become burdened by someone else's vanity crisis, right? So it's like something that you might have even changed their consciousness and move them away from these bad teeth, or move them away from these ego narratives where people had a free will in the matter but didn't have any steady aims. Okay, so that's why you're good. Your gen is like, yeah, that's not what I'm. It's up. You know what I'm saying? It's up and it's stuck, right? And they're like, I'm the emperor, and I'm not going to let someone's ego narrative stop me from loving my person because we feel so guilty for being attractive. So with the world in the reverse, they know that these people, the Nine of Swords had a lot of anxieties about their mouth and teeth, right? And this was like the Two of Swords reverse. It was like a painful and forced realizations where it was literally, their fears of rejection. And they were rejected, Fran, okay, because it was not their man, right? And some of them, they were like, oh, you just were being vain. You just saw stars around their big, beautiful smile, or their expression, and, their performance, or something like that. And then I feel like something where there may have even been a period of change, a period of detachment, so that you can liberate your spirit from this matter and stop it from being associated with this ego narrative about someone's attractiveness or their teeth, right? It was the feathers. It was like your soul that mattered to this person truly, and your communication reflected your soul, and the way that you take care of yourself also reflects your soul. So if they have bad teeth, never got their teeth fixed, something chipped happened, that's their soul, right? And that's why your man is not there. Okay, that's what's hidden from you, group 3, and this could be very triggering to them because this was all their, it was their free will, but they couldn't, it was like something where they just represent the historical foundation that we evolved from. That's the culture. That, for one, that's the cultural implication. For two, that's their free will. I don't know if this is making sense, but I'm just going to throw a lot of information here. It's like, the consciousness changed in this matter, right? Where it wasn't just about evolving the vanity of the teeth. It was also about evolving the mind state and having steady aims to not project, anxieties about your physical appearance, especially as it relates to a cultural group that has been historically oppressed. Okay, that's what I see in group 3. Let me know how that resonates, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Hi, group 4. Welcome to your selection. So you chose the red heart emoji. So what's hidden from you, group 4? Okay, what are you about to discover? Group 4. What are you about to discover? Sheesh. Okay. Let's get into a group 4. Last but not least, what's hidden from you? Okay. Oh my god, birds coming out again. Okay, a little more birds. The last pile was birds with vanity issues, and this pile, let's see what's going on. Okay. We have false person. Okay. And then sorrow. This could be a woman. Someone's name that starts with letter A or letter S or a letter K. Okay. This person that's hidden from you, they were false. And You could be just not getting the communication around what they did to create a sorrow. This is somebody's ex-spouse. Root for it. What's hidden from you? Okay. This is someone that you feel like you may have taken a big sacrifice around these people or this person, especially if they were your spouse. This person, if you are a man and this was a woman, that's, this person is, they could wear their hair in a bun a lot. They could wear their hair in a top bun like this, okay? Because I see 3 buns, like 1, 2, and then 3. So this person that you were with, that you were dating, this also could have been an older woman in your life, a family member, someone in your community or networks, a woman on your family tree. It could just be a woman in your community or an environment. But this feels like, especially if you're a man, this could be your spouse, right? Your spouse or your ex-spouse. And you guys, I feel like there's been a lot of fighting in this relationship. Or there's been a lot of unhappiness in the relationship. Or the relationship turning into opposition or struggle, okay? So, what's hidden from you, group 4? Yeah, this feels like something with the 5th house. It feels like a romantic partner. Someone that you could have procreated with this person. You could have this person could have supported your career or your creativity in a way also. This maybe you felt like you had a lot of fun times with this person, or you guys played a lot together. I'm hearing, even if this is a same gender relationship or something like that, it could be platonic or romantic, but it could feel like, you guys did each other's hair a lot, or maybe you cried together, okay? But this relationship was false, or something about it was false. Pulling from the unseen realm, okay? So I'm hearing that it was just an affair. Okay, some of this was just an affair, or it was just a short-term relationship, a temporary relationship. Okay, that they were not actually your wish fulfillment. But some of you guys, if this was like a woman that you were with, especially if you guys are like men of power, powerful men, and you had a spouse, a woman, a woman as your spouse, a hetero relationship. This woman, you may have been with this woman when you were an addict, or this woman has an addiction. There's like an element of addiction in this relationship, perhaps. This could also mean that like this spouse or this ex-partnership was like, it could have felt like an addiction, okay? It could have felt like something that you keep returning to, something that you can't, where you can't, like, where it's not easy to let go of, okay? Especially if you have children together. And, they want to come around and play with the children a lot and stuff like that. That's really, that's a tactic to, to keep you locked into an unfulfilling house, okay? This person did something false, and it was, you needed to, like, it was a sacrifice for you to get free, and to learn about the false thing that they did, because through the 5th house, this was a romantic affair. It was fun, it was playful, you could have had children, you could have been married, right? It was somebody that you were romantically interested in, right? So, I think that it was a sacrifice to see, this person's hidden motivation, or to see how they were causing issues, right? Some of them, this woman that you were with turned into a nightmare, especially if you're powerful men. This woman could have turned into a nightmare at work or in your network in some type of way, okay? And, this person, you were not liberated when you were with this person. Okay, here is the common dream again. The snake. We have flying. The snake dream came out, and also the recurrent dream came out of group 2, I believe. Yeah, what I say, addiction, right? So, you've been in a recurring conflict with this ex-spouse or something like that. And this relationship, it's a psychological disorder because something that they did, they were a hidden threat, especially if they were romantic. This person, what's hidden from you is that you engage in a behavior with this person because it produces a natural reward, especially if you have children with this person or you were with this person when you were younger, okay? But I think that, this conflict that you've had with this woman or this ex-spouse has been, it's been trying to teach you something about yourself, about a psychological disorder that you have, about something that feels like it produces a reward despite the negative harm and despite the substantial harm and the negative consequences, right? It feels like in this relationship, especially with the flying dream coming out, that engaging with this ex could feel like exhilarating, joyful, and liberating, when really is doing quite the opposite, right? This is a situation where it challenges your own personal sense of power because this woman they've done something false to create an illusion, right? To create an illusion, a distraction, or a problem for you. And this, especially if you're dating a woman that's outside of your culture, or dating someone that's outside of your culture, there are a lot of different interpretations of their behavior that are different than yours if you're in an interracial relationship, right? I think that you find a lot of joy in their cultural meanings, but they are, and this is like a natural reward because it helps you connect to the fundamental reality that lies beyond. But your interpretation could be skewed, or you could have had, like, someone's name is Nina, or because they could have, like, they come from a powerful culture, or their culture is still intact. You guys, you really, even if you were a man, and even if they are the same culture, it's something about this dynamic where this person, they overpower you. Even a woman is what I'm hearing. They overpower you, or they have interpretations that you're not aware of, right? They dominate you, right? And a lot of this relationship has been an addiction. And some of you guys, this is a white gaze, or this is a Stockholm syndrome, where you were met with a neuropsychological disorder. Some of you guys, you really did, especially if this is an interracial relationship, some of you guys, you really did move into this relationship because of some kind of scarcity trauma that you've been having, or epigenetic trauma, or oppressive mind state, right? And there were a lot of implications around this. And, if you were betrayed in an interracial relationship, this was, it will, people will say that it's unnatural even more, right? They will say that's not a natural reward. If you were betrayed by an unconventional relationship, then it means that they were not positive, and that might also lead to further implications. But I think that this woman, whatever it doesn't even have to be about their race, but I definitely think that this person was a hidden threat that you were unaware of, right? You were underestimating this woman, possibly because they came from, they come from a different culture than you, or they come from a different, you might have been, patriarchal in a way, thinking that this woman was not able to overpower you. But some of you guys, you truly underestimated the threat with this woman. And this person has been kind of calloused, right? Evil and ruthless, right? Do not trust this woman whatsoever, right? Some of this person, especially if this is like their ex or something like that, or your ex, there could be a sexual temptation to return to this, right? Because it, especially if you've already procreated with them, or, it represents your romantic history. This relationship, there was definitely intimacy, but I feel like, because especially if this is an interracial relationship, you guys have a very inexperienced intimacy, or this woman overpowered you in an intimacy, okay? Some of them just wanted D. They didn't want real intimacy. Some of this, if it's interracial relationships, they could feel like, they were addicted to you, right? But some of them, they could feel like this is forbidden sex, right? And if you've been having a lot of forbidden sex, that's not, some of them will overpower you because they're addicted to the forbidden sex, but they can't actually have a functioning relationship out in the public, right? Some of these relationships, turned into control issues, right? Or, they might have just helped you get a new perspective in life that you became addicted to, right? Some of it, because they could be coming from a different culture, a different walk of life. You could feel like this person made your dreams come true in a way, right? Made something happen for you. It could even feel like, especially if it's interracial, it could even feel like, that was the freedom, right? That is the fundamental reality that lies beyond, right? That is the higher vantage point. And I do think that you get that. But I think that this person, not representative of an entire culture, right? They may have had inflated ego, look down on you in a way, escape their responsibility of you in a way, especially if they were from a dominant culture, or if they, it could have been some other unknown reason as to why, as to how they were more empowered than you in a situation. It was they overpowered you, okay? And they might have turned into a nightmare because you came to this situation inexperienced, or looking for positive meanings only, when there were other interpretations here, especially dealing with someone from a different culture. I'm also getting that, this person may have helped you unlock a higher vantage point. They may have helped you, they definitely helped you get more in tune, but it was from the place of sorrow, where you were forced to face a behavior that led to a substantial amount of harm and negative consequences, despite, whatever temporary instant gratification you might get from engaging with it. I definitely think that this situation opened up possibilities, freedom of expression, told you, encouraged you not to give up, right? But there was a conflict with this woman. I don't want it to seem like they looked down on you from the get-go, or that it was like this negative thing from the jump. But I think that maybe disagreements and, the cultural implications and interpretations and fears, right? They all started to feel like it could have all started to feel threatening to each of you, right? Especially this woman, because they were coming from maybe they were more experienced, right? So you were just unaware or underestimated the threat. you might have been seeing the disagreements and the conflicts as just like, oh, just a disagreement, right? You might have just been looking at their beauty and not, underestimating how conflicting they could possibly be. You might have just found a lot of joy in their beauty, especially if you're from a different cultural group or something like that. You might have just found them to be really, really beautiful, right? You rejected aspects of who you are, and where you come from to date outside of your race, probably. And this, you thought that this was rewarding, right? And you engaged with this woman because you thought that it was a level up with beauty, this Scorpio. But this woman was actually a nightmare. They were more experienced, came from a better culture than you, and so you came around projecting anxieties about you probably came around projecting anxieties about your hair, and forced yourself to reproduce with someone because you were too scared about their nigger hair or something like that. But that's an outmoded belief, right? That's an outmoded thought, right? Afros are everywhere, right? And there was just like a lot of negative meaning associated with this woman. I don't think that you came to this situation free. You didn't come to the dynamic with this woman liberated. You were in this dynamic with this woman as as a neuropsychological disorder about your own culture and your own appearance, right? So you might have thought that you were flying. You might have thought, it might have felt exhilarating, joyful, right? It might have felt liberating. And it was, right? Because it forced you to face this betrayal and rejection and this conflict where you were projecting onto the beauty of some privilege, right? And I think that you keep repeating yourself in this situation with this conflict that has been unresolved with this woman because you don't want to admit the fact that this was a psychological disorder, or you don't want to address the cultural implications that came along with this, okay? This woman, you underestimated them because of their beauty, but they came from a powerful culture and a lot of experience, and you were just there with no hair or something like that, like something where you were there with no hair, there with no family. And this woman, it might not have started off with their ill intent, but it definitely turned into a threatening situation as you guys conflicted more, had more disagreements, had left issues unresolved, right? I think that you were really focused on the joy and trying to uphold the joy in the situation. But, this person started to strike you without warning. They started to, they really were reflecting back to you emotions that you were suppressing. They really, you really were, they really overpowered you with the sex, right? They just wanted the D, especially if they came from a different culture, right? And you were needing intimacy. And I think that you are in recovery. I think that you have recovered. But this woman was a psychological disorder that you became addicted to because you were needing intimacy, or you were projecting anxieties about intimacy and beauty, okay? This person was actually a nightmare, or some of them, they're still in your life because there's unresolved conflicts with each other. There's co-parenting probably as well. And to get free, I definitely think that they were a part of you getting free, but I think that it wasn't joy that made you free. It was this person's conflict and overpowering you that made you free. It was their striking you without warning that made you free. It was their unresolved issues about your disagreements, right? Them not letting go of the petty arguments and the petty fights, right? That made you free. It was you underestimating them as a threat, right? That made you free. It was them taking you through hell and high waters, trapping you with a child, LOL, collecting alimony, collecting child support, quite literally using you for everything that you have, and you were just there needing intimacy, right? And it was exhilarating for you, but they were really on top of the situation, really controlling the situation, right? And they might have even started to look down on you because you were there with this cultural lack, right? And this neurological disorder that they were really on top of, right? So you know, you felt rewarded by the dynamic that you kept returning to it, despite it creating so much conflict and harm. That's an addiction. That's mental illness, right? That person was false. They're not actually, they might have helped you get a new perspective, but they had an inflated ego, looked down on you, and didn't forgive you, right? It was not an unconditional love, right? So, you went through all this conflict with this woman. It was really unrequited, right? And, you were met with a persistent and intense urge to engage with them. And they were just really in control of themselves, their behavior, their science. And, they may have just, started to get bitter by all of the disagreement, or they were just there for D in the first place, right? And you just got too attached, right? So, let's grab friends. That's what's hidden from you, is that you were attached to this woman, like, with an addiction, and they were just not that into you, okay? They were conflicting with you, or they, they were conflicting with you that led to a betrayal, or they just never were that deep to begin with, okay? Sorry, that's harsh, especially for some of my men in the collective, okay? It could be one woman that'll turn them ice cold for life, So, these intense urges that you have with this woman is weird, and, it reflects your self-hatred, right? And I think that you're getting free now, okay? Because you cannot ignore the sorrow that you've been met with in this relationship. It hasn't been joyful. You just keep going back for, temporary intimacies and moments where you keep attaching positive things to negative meanings, right? You just really look disordered. And this woman, they could be disordered, but you underestimated their power, right? Some of you guys were just afraid of the unknown of what life would be like without their intimacy, right? Or without them in your life. The Queen of Pentacles, yeah, this woman was not into you. They were projecting whatever image that served them. And it took a lot of sacrifices for you to get free. It took a lot of conflicts for you to get free. For you to find your own personal sense of power. Instead of sitting there with no hair, projecting your woes about your culture and your life, right? You were too busy, desperate for intimacy, right? Afraid of the unknown, and you were actually getting ambushed by a betrayal, right? So with the Queen of Pentacles reverse, they were projecting your, whatever, they thought that you desired in the moment, right? Some of them, they were doing this just for D and for money, okay? Whatever they depict is whatever they depicted is what you projected, your fantasy onto them, okay? Stop projecting your fantasies onto people. That's actually like, the Ace of Cups. I think that you do get your self-love activation in a matter, right? That's the sacrifice, dealing with this Queen of Pentacles in the reverse, this materialistic cloud chaser, this materialistic woman that's just looking to social climb, might have pretty long hair, and you're over there with a bald fade, you know what I'm saying? Like not having peace, literally, not intimate, not feeling desirable. A lot of it could just feel like not feeling desirable. And this was the sacrifice, a lot of sacrifices for you to stop projecting your fantasies of being desired, or your fantasies of desire onto people. And I'm hearing that you keep repeating the same conflict with this woman, with the Queen of Pentacles reversed, and they're really a ambush of betrayal, right? You're literally betraying yourself. But with this Ace of Pentacles, it could look like a lot of evolution from where you where you kept returning, right? But I definitely think, especially if you have children, a home, securities, a whole life or something like that, this was all, this all was, your life, your reality today is a reflection of a past neuropsychological disorder where you just characterized by a persistent and intense urge to engage with this substance or this behavior with this person that actually was like a lot of harm, right? There was so much harm culturally here. There was so much harm in your family. Some of you guys, this person actually betrayed you without warning. Some of them, they played a role in a court case, or some legal issue that you were having. If you went to prison, some of them were definitely involved in that, right? And I think that some of you guys, you're now afraid of this woman, especially if you have securities and wealth and stuff like that. I think that you're really afraid of this woman. And I think that you have fond memories with this person. I think that you come out with a silver lining, right? Because you see those experiences or those moments as sacrifices to freedom, okay? But some of these people, after betraying you, some of you guys, you just really, this Ace of Cups is when you take responsibility for yourself as well, and where you kind of ignored, you ignore warning signs with this person, with this woman, the Queen of Pentacles reversed, right? So that's what's hidden from you, okay, with the Fool. I think that, you're still engaged with this woman. But I think that it's not real, friend, okay? So, those moments of joy that you experienced where you were exhilarated, this woman was really on top of controlling the situation, and whatever image they projected for you to feel joy and exhilaration, they literally created a disorder by, with their overpowering of you. They're projecting their image of you, of what you wanted. You were just unaware. And underestimated things because you were inexperienced sexually, or you were inexperienced around evil and ruthless people. And so this woman was actually a snake, right? You could have children in a home, but you were just persistent and intensely urged, right? And they just came. I don't know if they were the ones engaging you. I don't know if they were the ones that were, they were initiating with you. You were, right? And that's where you take the responsibility with the Ace of Cups, right? And the Queen of Pentacles, you have these memories, but this is really a nightmare. And you keep reflecting back to the memory where this person just projected joy and made you feel exhilarated, but that was really them just getting what they want out of the situation, and you forming an attachment to a memory and experience that wasn't real. It was literally just them responding to your substance, them responding to your deep tenacity, them responding to your urge to engage with them. Some of you were the one that engaged them, right? And that can lead to even greater feelings of rejection because you realize that they didn't really want you, okay? And I think that after everything they do, I think that they they knew that you were unaware, friend, right? So that's how they got what they wanted out of the situation with the Queen of Pentacles. And you were just used and abused in a situation, and now you're disordered with all these memories from the past with them, trying to recollect yourself and to see what was false and what was real. But the truth is, if the reality is unhappy, or the reality is not what you imagined it to be, then that's all the implications that you need, okay? This person really fell short, and it was really superficial, right? You were just there needing intimacy in an inexperienced way, reflecting, or sharing your substance and your deep, meanings, right? And you were not tuned in all the way to how, their cultural differences could have different negative interpretations. And even if this isn't about different cultures, it could literally just be something where they were dominant in a situation and you underestimated it, or you were unaware and they were aware, right? And that was a big difference in power dynamic, right? And so they were able to they were conflicting with you. And some of this stuff maybe you were aware of and ignored, but other things, I forget what I was saying, but it just feels like this situation still remains unresolved now, okay, with the Fool, because some of you guys have securities that cannot be dissolved. like children. But this woman, they, I think that what's hidden from you is that they actually fell short by quite the distance, right? Um, Especially if you thought that this was like, oh, we have this big, beautiful interracial relationship and we're so deep and tenacious. Those cultural differences actually made, this woman grow bitterness, right? Or they were aware of some, like they had a higher cultural literacy than you, right? Even. And so they were just there, not because they were lacking culture and not because they were lacking intimacy. They come from a strong culture and intimacy, right? It's you that were lacking. You felt very rewarded by the situation, but they did not, right? They were just there for something superficial. Um, and ultimately it reflected that you didn't have your own personal power in a situation. And for you to get your own personal power, you had to conflict with this person, get betrayed by this person, so that you can get free. Okay? Does that make sense, friends? And I think that it's still unresolved because you guys have, it's a reoccurring conflict. With the Nine of Cups, yeah, that can sometimes happen, right? I think that you found it to be emotionally satisfying, right? But the Queen of Pentacles is not, the Nine of Cups is not the Ten of Cups. The Ten of Cups is when you decide to love yourself and take a leap of faith, right? And I think that you feel, if there's something that's unresolved, like there's securities, maybe you are going through a divorce, maybe there is, something, some other implications of, but you are on top of a situation, and I see that you get what you want from the situation. By choosing to love yourself, you get what you want, right? So, and you also found them to be, emotionally satisfying as well, right? And I think that is the struggle that you're having, right? Is that it was not actually a unconditional love with them. It was, you meeting this person with your own self-love challenges and forming attachments and creating substance where there were previously not any, right? And you might have find it to be fulfillment, that you guys took this journey together, but you will always struggle with this tension from the past the past attachment to the memories or the experiences that were joyful and exhilarating, and then balancing that with a painful truth or orientation to the truth that this woman betrayed you, that this was not joy. If they were so joyful and exhilarating and deep and tenacious, then they wouldn't have done that, right? Okay. And I also think that, you have this self-love activation now, but because this was so harmful and you kept meeting this situation like it was an addiction, you could have so much paranoia about getting overpowered and controlled again, right? So that could create negative, this betrayal trauma from this woman, where they fell short by quite the distance with the Six of Wands and got, they could have humiliated you and themselves. With this conflict, it just creates so much fear around, and like challenges around your next relationships, okay? But I do think that with the Ace of Cups, you're moving into your next cycles with a lot more personal power. And you do get what you want in this situation, like to resolve a conflict. But it is a big burden, right? It is a big burden, a lot of extra responsibility with this woman because the relationship is over, right? With the Tower reverse, the relationship is over, or the woman, to see you getting emotional, to see you emotionally satisfied now, there's still, the resentment could be building. Some of you guys, you found a new partner, right? And they came back when they saw you, with a new partner or something like that. And so, this started to build resentment when they saw that, you could resolve your conflict with someone else, right? Or that you found a negative meaning with someone else or after you left them. Oh my gosh, you guys, that's so sad. LOL. But, that's what I'm saying about this hidden situation with this woman that you've been addicted to. And it's because you guys have securities together and have a lot of experiences together, and you might, but what you're learning is that they really just came around for their own selfish and intense desires, right? With the Queen of Pentacles reverse, them projecting and being a superficial cloud chaser was something that you found to be emotionally satisfying, because it forced you to face a reflection of yourself where you were lacking your own, you were lacking a substance of intimacy with yourself first, right? And it was an experience, a new experience that you find, is satisfying. But the struggle afterwards, the impact or the consequences of the betrayal, you will live with those wounds forever, right? But I think that you move forward with this burden around this woman, because you know that they just project images, in conflict for money and and control. But you are moving forward with a lot more sense of personal power, and taking a leap of faith. They already fell short. They already embarrassed themselves. So, you know, it was it tended to be a nightmare, but one that liberated you instead of making you hate yourself or return back to the previous state of existence. Okay, thank you so much, group 4. That's what's hidden from you about this woman, this ex-spouse, an important woman in your life that may have a negative meaning now, but you get your wish fulfillment through it all, right? And more importantly, you find your personal power and you take your power back from this woman that you underestimated, truly. Okay, thank you so much, group 4. Let me know how that resonates, and I'll see you guys in the next one.